The grand chambers of the Galactic Council on Icarus Prime had never been so full. Delegates from every known species filled the high seats, their robes shimmering with authority, their eyes fixed on the glowing center platform. There, surrounded by the watching galaxy, stood the representatives from Earth. Ambassador Leora Marin of the United Human Systems stood tall and calm, though she knew the words to come would slice deeper than any blade. Earth had trusted the Council. It had honored every treaty, offered its technology, shared its discoveries, and opened trade even when others hesitated. In only a century of galactic presence, humans had gone from newcomers to respected contributors, or so they believed. But today, all illusions would die. The High Speaker of the Council, a towering Ilarith named Seven-Core, spoke with the voice of the Chamber's full authority, his tones solemn. In the interest of galactic security, the United Human Systems is hereby stripped of military cooperation, rights, denied access to shared defense technologies, and confined to its native systems until further notice. Gasps echoed across the chamber. Not from humans, they had expected this, but from the other delegates. Some, like the Korathi and the Velern, looked away in shame. Others, like the Drexelen and the Harvex, smirked quietly. But the betrayal was real. Earth had been accused wrongly of violating a shared intelligence treaty. A data breach on a frontier station had led to a virus spreading into the Council's defense grid. All evidence pointed to the human encryption matrix. Earth had denied it, offered full transparency, even opened their systems to outside audit. But the Council had already made up its mind, or perhaps someone else had made it for them. Deep inside the chamber, where politics ran like blood, a hidden hand had pushed the vote. Humans had grown too strong, too fast. They laughed too easily at fear. They adapted when others hesitated. And most dangerously of all, they never showed their full hand. Ambassador Marin did not argue. She simply nodded, her voice calm. Understood. Earth acknowledges the Council's decision. And with that, she and her team left, not in anger, not in tears, but with silence, a silence more terrifying than outrage. Because Earth was not helpless. It was patient. And in that moment, the entire galaxy began to wonder, what happens when you betray someone who planned for betrayal from the start? Back on Earth, the response was swift, quiet, and absolute. The global defense network went dark completely. All civilian satellites remained operational. Communication relays stayed online. But anything tied to defense, research, or strategy blinked. Off the galactic grid. No pings, no traffic, just silence. The colonies followed suit. Mars sealed its gates. Europa's labs locked down. The orbiting trade stations around Titan rerouted all non-human vessels away with one automated message. Temporary restructure in progress. No entry. The message was polite, but cold. And beneath that icy politeness was the quiet fury of a people who knew they had been stabbed in the back. The galaxy buzzed with confusion. News channels speculated everything from human surrender to a total breakdown in Earth's systems. Council analysts tried to reach human command centers, no response. Probes were sent. They were ignored. For 2 weeks, Earth said nothing. And in those 2 weeks, the rest of the galaxy held its breath. Then, on the 15th day, Earth broke the silence. A single ship appeared near the Council's border. Not in Council space. Not in aggression. Just near. It identified itself as the UN's Archangel, a vessel no one had ever heard of before. Its size was enormous, over 6 kilometers long, but it didn't match any known Earthship designs. It wasn't built like a battleship or a carrier. Its surface was smooth, dark, gray, with deep veins of soft white light that pulsed in slow rhythm. No visible weapons, no open ports, no shields detected. But its engine signature terrified everyone. Not because it was strong, but because it didn't match any existing propulsion method. Not human, not alien. It was something new. The Council dispatched a small scout fleet to monitor the ship. They expected a warning, or maybe a message. Instead, the Archangel sent nothing at all. It simply hovered near the border, unmoving, silent, watching. Council fleets kept their distance, unsure whether to see it as a threat or a message. That uncertainty was the true weapon. Inside the UN's Archangel, Commander Ayla Rez stood at her post, watching the data streams. She had been briefed long ago for this moment. Earth didn't plan for war. It planned for the moment, before war the edge where deterrence lived. The Archangel was not an attack ship. It was a mirror. It showed the galaxy that Earth was done playing by the Council's rules, and the message spread fast. Across thousands of worlds, aliens whispered the same thing. The humans are deploying. Not marching, not invading. Just deploying. The word alone chilled spines. Because Earth didn't need a war to make a point. It just needed to prepare and let everyone else wonder what came next. Back in the Council chamber, some began to regret the betrayal. High Speaker Southern watched reports pour in about systems going quiet, colonies growing uneasy, alliances fraying. The humans weren't shouting, and that silence was heavier than any war cry. What are they planning? One delegate asked nervously. The High Speaker gave no answer, because deep down, he feared the truth. Earth wasn't planning anything. Earth was simply letting the galaxy feel what betrayal cost. And somewhere, on a quiet channel only a few knew how to find, a message blinked across human space. 3 words. Stage 1. Begin. The galaxy had seen wars before. Civilizations clashed. Empires rose and fell. There were invasions, rebellions, border disputes, and even extermination attempts by ruthless species. But never in known history had one species gone completely quiet after being betrayed, only to deploy without a word. Humanity's silence was no longer being mocked. It was being feared. The UN's Archangel continued to hover near the borders of Council space, unmoving, without transmission, like a monolith daring others to get closer. Small alien fleets kept their distance, sending wave after wave of scans. Each time, the results came back the same: no weapons visible, no shields detected, but power readings so strange and vast they bordered on supernatural. And still, the Archangel did nothing. Not a flicker of threat, not even a broadcasted warning. But the longer it stayed there, the louder the galaxy's nerves frayed. Then came the second move. Mars Station Orion, one of humanity's oldest orbital colonies, disconnected its trade links with the Valari Combine. That wasn't unusual alliances. Shifted all the time. But what followed next changed everything. The station's infrastructure morphed, literally morphed. Entire docking rings shifted position. Civilian sectors folded into the interior. What had once been a peaceful science and trade platform transformed itself in less than 20 minutes into a sleek, seamless tower of black alloy and strange geometry. Satellites caught footage. News feeds exploded. The Valari sent a diplomatic team to ask what was happening. They were denied docking with a single word: deployment. That was all. No aggression. No explanation. Just the word that had become Earth's echo. Meanwhile, Earth's outer colonies began to respond to encrypted pulses. Small outposts, mining rigs, and quiet research hubs scattered across dozens of fringe systems activated emergency protocols never revealed before. Whole settlements disappeared from galactic charts. Some were cloaked. Others phased into subspace layers no other species even knew existed. Earth's quiet withdrawal was not a retreat, it was a recalibration. It didn't remove its presence from the galaxy. It simply shifted it into places where only they could see back on Earth. In a secure bunker buried beneath the Alps, a council of human strategists stood in a ring of low light, watching projections form from strands of blue light. Commander Ayla Rez was there too, having returned from the Archangel. She didn't speak much, just watched and listened. The room was quiet, not tense, not afraid, just ready. A tall man named Director Haven, one of the original architects of Project Spectre, leaned forward and spoke. "They're watching us. That's fine. Let them keep watching. That's all we need." Someone asked, "Should we respond to the Kefari delegation? They're offering to mediate." Haven shook his head slowly. "If they wanted peace, they should have spoken before the vote. Earth doesn't need mediation. Earth is not at war. Not yet." And that was the line that echoed through every hidden base, every deployed vessel, and every silent human observer spread across the stars. Not at war. Not yet. Elsewhere, panic grew. On the core world of Daxion, home to the largest civilian armada of the Council, people started hoarding supplies. Trade ships refused to enter human systems. Rumors spread that Earth had discovered a form of dark energy, weaponry capable of bending time itself. Others whispered that the humans were summoning an ancient machine god buried in the ice of their homeworld. None of it was confirmed, but none of it was denied. That was the terrifying part. Earth wasn't laughing anymore. It wasn't explaining. It was letting the galaxy run wild with fear. And fear, once started, was hard to contain. Then came the third move. A single message, sent in the old Council format, pinned across every major relay station in neutral space. It had no origin stamp, no human identifiers, just a raw text string. It read, "Deployment Stage 2, Spectres active." That phrase would go down in history. Within the hour, 27 critical systems belonging to anti-human Council blocks went offline. No ships were attacked, no weapons fired, but power grids flickered. Defense satellites stopped responding. Government buildings lost control of their artificial gravity. It wasn't destruction. It was demonstration. Each failure lasted only 5 minutes. Then systems returned to normal as if nothing happened. Except now, those systems were marked. A quiet signature, detectable only by human tech, was left behind in every core processor. A single line of binary code that translated to, "Don't forget." The Drexalan were the first to respond with military action. They scrambled a fleet of 20 warships toward the Archangel, determined to save face after mocking humanity during the Council vote. As they approached, the Archangel didn't move. It didn't power up. It simply opened a single communication window, a static-filled screen showing a countdown. 60 seconds. The Drexalan fleet held position, unsure. At 0, nothing happened. Then, instantly, every single one of their ships received a forced software reboot. Not from a signal. From a stored fail-safe embedded in their own systems ones they had downloaded 3 years ago from what they thought was a simple Earth medical database. Earth had been planting keys for years. The fleet turned back without a word, and the galaxy learned something new that day. Humanity didn't need to fight with strength. It fought with preparation, with foresight, with traps hidden inside kindness and defense, disguised as diplomacy. Earth had offered peace for decades, but it had also remembered everything, every insult, every sabotage, every betrayal. And now it was finally letting the galaxy realize how sharp memory could become when wielded like a blade. Inside the Council Hall on Icarus Prime, silence ruled the chamber as the latest reports played. Species once confident now looked over their shoulders. The High Speaker watched the screen go dark and whispered, They are not retaliating. They are teaching. And from deep within human space, another message blinked into existence. Stage 3, awaiting trigger. Somewhere in the silent void between known stars, a signal passed through space so quietly that not even the Council's deepest listening. Correys detected it. It was not sent by ship, not broadcasted through channels, but moved like thought direct, fast, unstoppable. It reached 27 different human outposts within seconds. Each of those outposts had been long abandoned, officially decommissioned and forgotten by the galaxy. But they weren't forgotten by Earth. They were vault-sealed chambers hidden inside asteroids, moons, even derelict hulls that had once served as space museums. And inside those vaults waited the final part of the plan, Trigger Protocol. Back on Earth, the night skies were quiet, calm, and beautiful. Civilian life had returned to normal, or at least what counted as normal, since the Council's betrayal. But beneath the surface, deep within the Arctic core, Director Haven watched the master display light up one node at a time. Each point was marked in human-coded red encrypted secure, invisible to outsiders. At exactly midnight, all nodes flashed green. Haven turned slowly to Commander Ayla Rez. The vaults are online. She gave a small nod, expression calm, but her eyes sharp. Then we moved to the next phase. No aggression, no announcement. Just adjustments. That word, adjustments, would become another quiet weapon. Because Earth was not going to strike first. They never planned to. What Earth would do instead was reshape the game around those who betrayed them, until their enemies realized they'd already lost. Meanwhile, the Archangel had moved for the first time. Only a few degrees, drifting slowly around the edge of Council space, but it was enough to send the entire border patrol into panic. Ships scrambled. Scanners went wild. Messages were broadcast in a dozen languages. The Archangel ignored them. All. Its new position wasn't strategic. It wasn't about intimidation. It was simply symbolic, like a queen stepping one tile forward on a silent chessboard. The galaxy had spent decades under the assumption that humanity was still growing, that Earth was new to space, young, fragile. But what they didn't realize was that humanity had only pretended to be young. They had listened, observed, cataloged every species, every weakness, every common failure. And in the background, Earth had prepared, not to conquer, but to survive betrayal. The Cathari, one of the more neutral species in the Council, requested a diplomatic meet. They hadn't voted for the sanctions against Earth, but they hadn't stopped them either. Now they wanted peace, clarification, answers. Their envoy arrived in Sol orbit 2 days later. They were met by a single unmanned probe that relayed a message in clear, simple language. We are not angry. We are not at war. But we will not explain ourselves to those who stood silent when the blade was drawn. The message spread across the stars like wildfire. Some races began to question their place in the Council. Protests broke out on Levarn 3, where over 1,000 aliens demanded their government apologize to Earth. A faction on the Drexalan frontier splintered, claiming the Council's betrayal of humanity was a mistake that could doom them all. For the first time, the galaxy was not united against Earth, but worried about being left behind by it. And this fear only grew when the Spectres returned. Nobody knew what the Spectres were. They weren't soldiers. They weren't spies in the traditional sense. They left no trace, no footage, no sound. But when they appeared, things changed. A planetary governor on Heraxis Prime woke up one morning to find all their war fund accounts emptied, replaced with charity donations sent to human refugee centers from past wars. A Council listening post went dark for 5 hours, and when it rebooted, it played one audio file on loop. A child laughing. No voice claimed it, no threat followed. But after each event, a single Earth data signature was always discovered deep within the systems, encrypted in a way no other race could. Breaked out, and through all of this, Earth still spoke only one phrase: deployment in progress. It wasn't until the Council tried to respond with a show of power that the next revelation arrived. The Council's fleet, its strongest one, the Dread Star Line, entered human border space near the Delta Sector, aiming to pressure Earth into talks. The ships were massive, advanced, and full of elite soldiers. But before they could activate their long-range scanners, every navigation system went blind. Not jammed, just blank. The ships drifted, unable to find where they were or how to leave. That's when a single human drone passed by, dragging behind it a data buoy. It broadcast a single line in 26 Council dialects. We rewrote your maps 3 years ago. You just didn't know. And the Dreadstar Line left, quietly, without firing a single shot. Back at the Council chamber, panic turned to disbelief. What do they want? The High Speaker demanded. What are the humans trying to prove? No one had an answer, because Earth had made no demands. They had claimed no territory. They had not even asked for an apology. They were just deploying. And the galaxy, for the first time in a very long time, was starting to believe that Earth never wanted power, but had always held it. And then, without warning, the Archangel sent a message. Not a threat. Not a demand. Just coordinates. A location in deep space. Unknown, uncharted, no response followed, no explanation. But every species with long-range tracking knew what it meant. The coordinates pointed to a part of the galaxy believed to be empty. A void sector. A place marked on ancient maps with only one word: restricted. And slowly, ships across Earth's hidden fleets began to move. The galaxy watched, and this time, nobody laughed. The coordinates sent by the UN's Archangel led to a stretch of deep space known only as the Lacrim Void, a vast and silent region wrapped in anomalies, forgotten by most and feared by the rest. Centuries ago, early explorers from various species had entered its borders, searching for shortcuts, hidden resources, or lost technologies. None had returned. Since then, the Council had declared the sector unfit for navigation, blaming magnetic storms and unstable gravitic fields. But that wasn't the truth. The real reason was buried in sealed files. Only the oldest members of the Council had access to files that referenced ghost signals, ships twisted into unnatural forms, and whispers across the stars. The Lacrim Void wasn't empty. It was waiting. And now, humanity was going there by choice. The UN's Archangel reached the edge of the void and didn't stop. With no escort and no visible support, it drifted in like it belonged there. Sensors across nearby sectors blinked and went blind the moment the Archangel crossed the threshold. Alien fleets sent probes to follow it, but the moment they passed the invisible boundary, they disappeared. No wreckage, no signal, just silence. The message was clear. Only humanity could enter now. And so they did. Not with force, not with announcement, but with certainty. Because the truth was, Earth had always known about the Lacrim Void. They hadn't just heard the stories. They'd seen the signs, mapped the ruins, read the symbols etched on meteors and walls of dead moons. For decades, secret missions had ventured near the edge of that forbidden zone. Some of those crews had vanished. Others returned, changed. But all of them said the same thing. It's not dead. It's remembering. Back on Earth, Director. Haven stood before a room of Watcher's intelligence leads, strategists, even a few shadow figures whose names no one spoke aloud. The lights were low. In the center of the chamber, a hologram spun slowly, showing a 3D image of the Lacrim Void. Tiny human ships moved within it like silver insects. vanishing and reappearing between glitch-like pulses. One of the observers, an older woman with a nervous look, spoke softly. "Are we ready?" Haven didn't answer with words. He only gestured to the display. A new icon had appeared, pulsing gently. A vault of Orion. It was not a station, not a city. It was something old or something built not by humans, but for them. Within the void, the Archangel reached its destination. A vast structure, shaped like an 8-pointed star, slowly came into view, half buried in a floating debris cloud of shattered asteroids and frozen light. It didn't emit power. It didn't rotate. It simply was. The Archangel sent no scans. It didn't need to. This was where Earth's long-forgotten inheritance rested. And as its docking arms extended toward the vault, a low resonance began to hum across all human systems. Not a sound. A feeling. Billions of humans paused, unaware why chills ran down their spines or why their hearts beat faster. From orbiting colonies to underground bunkers, from ocean cities to silent desert labs, something had awakened in their blood, ancestral, ancient, prepared. The vault of Orion opened not with mechanical motion, but like a flower responding to sunlight. And inside, there was no bridge. Number control panel, just a single sphere floating above a pedestal, glowing with soft silver energy. Commander Ayla Rez stood before it alone. She reached out slowly, her hand hovering just above its surface. The sphere pulsed once and then unfolded into light. Information poured into the Archangel's systems. Not words, not maps, but memory. And in that moment, Earth remembered what the galaxy had long forgotten. Eons ago, before the current races had even formed language, there was a presence across the stars, a guiding will. It had no name, but its purpose was clear: to plant seeds of survival. It knew that great empires always fell. That knowledge was always lost, that every flame eventually faded. So it built the vaults, not as weapons, but as anchors. It seeded one world in each quadrant with potential. And on one of those worlds, Earth, the seed grew differently. Humans did not just survive. They questioned. They broke boundaries. They disobeyed limits. And when the first vault pulse was detected by early scientists, it had been dismissed as noise. But those few who knew the truth had waited, hidden in layers of Earth's secret programs, nurturing a plan for the day the galaxy would turn its back. And now that day had come. The vault gave access to ancient systems' lost star paths, silent guardian fleets hidden in nebulae, entire libraries of forgotten sciences stored in particle-stilled time. Earth had not stumbled onto power. It had inherited it. And now it could wield it. But Earth didn't react with violence. Instead, across the galaxy, things quietly changed. Communications sped up. Navigation across fringe systems improved. Planets thought to be uninhabitable began to show signs of being reconditioned. Every change came through anonymous data drops, left on public channels, untraceable, but always helpful. The galaxy watched in awe and fear as the human hand began to reach, not to crush, but to fix. And yet, that fear did not vanish, because they all remembered. This was the same species the Council had betrayed. If this was how humanity responded, with calm, what would they do if pushed too far? The High Speaker of the Council summoned a closed-door session. "They've entered the Lacrim Void," he said grimly, "and they returned." Whispers followed. No one ever returned. "They're not just returning," another delegate said quietly. "They're unlocking it." And just then, another signal arrived. This time, it came through every channel. It couldn't be blocked. It couldn't be erased. The voice was calm, human. It said, "Deployment complete. The void is now under human stewardship. No intervention is necessary. But if one is attempted, We will respond. And just like that, the stars felt smaller, because the void, the most feared place in the galaxy, now had a guardian. And that guardian was Earth Dot across the stars. Silence fell heavier than any weapon ever built. The message sent by Earth echoed. To every frequency. The void now belonged to humanity. It was not a conquest, not a claim made through war, but a statement of truth, sealed by a presence no one could deny. The ancient Lacrim void, long feared and left untouched, was now under the watch of the very species the Council had thought too young, too reckless, too soft. But the humans were none of those things. They had simply waited. Now they stood, where no one else dared, and the galaxy could do nothing but watch. In Icarus Prime, the Council gathered in a state of rare unity. Delegates who had once laughed at Earth, who had shrugged off their withdrawal and mocked the deployment of one single ship, now sat silent. The High Speaker stared at the floating image of the Vault of Orion, slowly rotating above the chamber, surrounded by fleets of unknown design, old, alien, but somehow now loyal to Earth. No weapons had fired, no battles were fought, but power had shifted, and no one could deny it. Even now, human technology was altering galactic infrastructure. Stations began receiving anonymous upgrades, communications cleaned, reactors stabilized, old viruses removed from core systems. It was surgical, silent and efficient. Earth said nothing. They asked for no payment. They made no public appearances. And that was what terrified the Council the most. If Earth wanted dominance, they could have demanded it. If they wanted revenge, they could have taken it. But instead, humanity simply fixed things as if to remind the galaxy what could have been if the Council hadn't chosen betrayal. Even some of the most hardened alien leaders began to question themselves. What if we had trusted them? One asked. What if we had stood with Earth when the vote came? But the past couldn't be undone, and Earth was not offering forgiveness. Only distance not far beyond the Council's reach. Deep within the void, the Archangel hovered near the vault, its systems now fully synchronized with the ancient construct. Commander Ayla Rez stood at the new central interface, watching long forgotten. Maps unfold corridors of space folded in time, ancient warning beacons, even fragments of civilizations erased from history. And among them, buried in the vault's memory, was a single message left by the builders. One shall awaken. One shall guard. One shall decide. And Earth had been chosen. Not because it was the strongest. Not because it was the wisest. But because humans, more than any species before, understood what it meant to be broken and still rise. The next change came without warning. A rogue fleet of pirates, believing Earth distracted by its void operations, tried to raid a Council trade line near the Helix Reach. The Council, weakened and slow to respond, called for help from its usual allies, but none came. Then, without announcement, a shadow passed through the stars. One ship, not marked, not scanned, not named. But its silhouette was unmistakable. Human. The pirate fleet vanished in less than 3 minutes. No wreckage, no survivors. Only a signal left behind, picked up by Council satellites. Your conflicts are no longer ignored. The message sent shockwaves. Earth was not just guarding the void. Now it had become the quiet hand that would restore balance. Even where the Council had failed. Inside Earth's hidden chambers, Director Haven watched reports flow in. Systems were stabilizing. Trade was rerouting through secure human corridors. Threats were retreating into hiding. But still, humanity remained silent. There were no broadcasts of victory, no flags raised, no leaders claiming control. And that was the final lesson Earth would teach the galaxy. Power did not always roar. Sometimes it simply arrived and never left. On a quiet colony world near The edge of the Seraphim Belt. A group of alien children watched human engineers install gravity regulators that would allow their homes to survive the storms. One child asked why the humans were helping if the council had been cruel. The lead engineer smiled gently and replied, "Because helping is what we always wanted to do. They just made the mistake of thinking that meant we were weak." The council, realizing the truth too late, called for an emergency alliance summit. For the first time, they reached out to Earth not with demands, but with a plea. The message was brief, respectful, and uncertain. Humanity, the galaxy requests. Dialogue, not as rulers, not as rebels, but as partners. No reply came. For 7 days, they waited. Delegates grew nervous. Worlds watched. Some hoped, some feared. Then, on the 8th day, a signal blinked into every official council channel. A calm voice ambassador, Leora Marin, returned from Earth's inner circle spoke clearly. "Earth accepts dialogue, but we will not return to the council. If the council wishes peace, then let it come to the void." And with that, everything changed, because the galaxy realized that Earth had done something no species had ever done before. They had walked away not as outcasts, but as guardians of something older than empires. The Lacrim void, once feared, had become the new heart of diplomacy, not by declaration, by choice. Earth didn't take the center of power. The galaxy simply began to turn toward them. One by one, species sent their delegates. Not to bargain, but to learn. And in the heart of the void, surrounded by ancient light and quiet stars, a new era began. One shaped not by fear, but by the presence of a species that had suffered betrayal, and chosen strength, chosen patience, chosen silence until the time was right. And now the time belonged to them.